Hi, this is Gwen Einat at the Center for Research Libraries, and would like to welcome everyone to our webinar on medieval resources. We have so many people interested in this event. We had over 100 registrants, I think more like 140, and from institutions all over the country. So thanks very much for joining us today. I'm the communications specialist here. You've probably seen my name at the bottom of quite a few emails. And before we begin, I just have a few housekeeping rules to mention. One thing is that you have been muted on entry. We mute everyone with the audio just to kind of help eliminate the background noise. So if you're not muted, if you could press *6, that would really help us out. And you'll be able to unmute yourself later at the open discussion at the end of the session in case you want to ask a question over the phone line. So you have been muted. But if you have a question throughout the presentation, you see that you'll be able to send questions and commentary through the online chat, which we greatly encourage. Because we have a wide variety of presenters today, we've decided to keep most of them to the very end of the hour. So please submit your questions, and the presenters will get to them as quickly as they can during the open discussion. Because there are so many of you today, I would ask for be patient with us. Any questions we don't get to, we can always follow up with after the session, but we will try to keep this to an hour because I'm sure everybody has meetings after this and we want to stay on time. So very briefly, just in case you happen to be new to CRL, the Center for Research Libraries is a consortium of university, college, and independent research libraries of all sizes. We were founded in 1949, so we've been collecting for about 6 decades now. We have academic libraries at major research universities like Harvard and Yale, four-year colleges like Reed and Oberlin, and also independent non-academic institutions like the New York Public Library and Chicago's own Newberry Library. Most of the 250 CRL libraries are located in the United States, but we also have 29 Canadian libraries and even the University of Hong Kong as a global member. So our efforts over these 6 decades have a collection of primary source materials the size really of a major university library, with 5 million traditional and digital items. Newspapers, journals, documents, archives, other traditional and digital resources from a global network, and we'll talk more about those today. Right now we're also focusing on helping libraries transition into the 21st century from traditional storage to digital. We heard from some of today's attendees that one of the hurdles, I think, for medieval research is that doesn't seem like a lot of this is digitized yet. So for like a grad student, they have to add in the expense of travel to the primary source along with their research. So digitization of this kind of material is going to be very key. So let's get started. Today's presenters include CRL's own Mary Wilkie, our Member Liaison and Outreach Services Director, Jane Marie Penzino, who is humanities librarian at Florida State University, Susan Stoyer, who's the head of Special Collections and Rare Book Room at Waldo Library at Western Michigan University, Danielle Forster, Information Services Librarian, English, French, Women's Studies, Religious Studies at McPherson Library at the University of Victoria Libraries. The last 3 speakers will be calling in. They're not here with us at CRL, they are remote, but here with us today at CRL, we also have Paul Sanger from the Newberry Library, who is the George A. Poole III Curator of Rare Books and Collection Development Librarian at the Newberry Library. So again, please forward us your comments, your questions. If you have any technical difficulties at all, let us know. And I really have to commend Mary Wilkie here because she has talked to so many of you about this subject. And when we were discussing the webinar schedule, she really pushed for medieval. She said it was going to be a huge hit, and she was exactly right, judging by the huge enrollment today and the traffic that our new medieval studies topic guide is already receiving on our website, and she'll talk about that as well. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Mary.
Hi, this is Mary Wilkie, and this is a brief agenda of what we're going to try to cover all in the time we're allotted it. Because the other presenters are not here on site at CRL, when they are talking, you will also hear a verbal cue to us at CRL for the next slide. So please don't worry about that. As Gwen mentioned, this came up. I had pushed for medieval studies because actually I first became aware of the need for this years ago when I was giving a tour to librarians, and one of the librarians saw some reels of film on a shelf that we had not cataloged yet, and she had cried out loud, "Medieval manuscripts!" And that was when I first became aware that people did not think of CRL when they thought about medieval resources. So it's been a long time coming, but we're here at this point. And one of the things, because we had so many respondents, I want to cover the survey results from briefly for those who filled out the SurveyMonkey form. I thought some of the results were quite easy. We'll just run through these slides. As you can see, England, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain are the 5 most top popular countries. In the next one, the High Middle Ages overtook the late medieval ages in just the last day or so as having the strongest interest from those who answered the survey. And there were over 100 respondents. The religious history of the book are the top focus areas for studies. Literary and academic works are the most popular genre of text. Latin by far is the language of your primary sources you use, with French, English coming up next, followed by German, Italian, and then Spanish. For contemporary scholarship, the language is most used by those who answered the survey. To no surprise, English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. Finally, top leaders for what type of resources were academic works, followed closely by literary manuscripts and illuminated manuscripts. The survey results were interesting to me, and I do know I included the slides because a number of registrants also mentioned that they were curious to what other medievalists were interested in. I want to thank both Jane Marie, who's participating in this webinar, and Chris Africa for their work and their contributions to the creation of the Medieval Studies Topic Guide. We're going to go live to the website now. Without their work, this would not be as good as it is. On the website, you can go to find topic guides through the green bar at top, go to collections. In the drop-down menu, you select topic guides, and that will bring you to the opening page where all of them are gathered. You will notice that our newest updated guides are highlighted at the top, while the ones that you are perhaps more traditionally aware of, the older ones that are not yet updated, are down below. We will be updating them as we can, and if we click on the Medieval Studies link, that will take us to the new guide. The new guides most often have 3 tabs. The first tab is your landscape tab, and that really gives you an overview of the subject area. And if we could scroll down the screen, you'll see after the overview, we have an area for recent areas of scholarly interest, and then we finish with the challenges that many medieval scholars are facing at this time. If we go to the second tab, we have our CRL collections, and at the top we speak a bit about how we have acquired what we do hold. Most often the collections we have related to medieval studies are a result of our collection programs, which I will talk more about near the end of the webinar, but where you can see on the right-hand side, related CRO programs, there is a link to the Cooperative Resource Development Programs. It's through those programs that we've bought such things as the Arabic manuscripts in the British Library via the Purchase Proposal Program and the set of microfilm medieval and Renaissance manuscripts from St. John's College through the Shared Purchase Program. We also are known for our doctoral dissertation collection, but most of all, if our host running the slideshow can scan down, we have at the bottom listed the highlights. The topic guides never cover all of the material that we have on a topic, but they have highlights. We have church archives, incunabula sets, and some of the big manuscript sets below, where all the items will link to a catalog record, and where possible, we also link to an online guide. At this point in time, in the final tab on Topic Guide is for related resources, where we gathered some items that we thought would be of interest to those collecting medieval resources or interested in medieval resources. At the top are a number of websites that we think are important, and at the bottom of this page there are a few articles pertinent to collecting resources. At this point, I would like to turn this over to Jane Marie from Florida State. So Jane, please take it away.
I am Jane Marie Pinzino at Florida State University Libraries in Tallahassee, Florida. Greetings from Florida. My title is that of Humanities Research Librarian, and I work with faculty and graduate students in classics, English, philosophy, religion, art history, and our recently launched History of Text Technologies program. I will just share a brief word about my professional background. I have a Master of Divinity degree from Duke University and a PhD in Religious Studies from University of Pennsylvania with a concentration in medieval studies. In addition, I have a Master of Library Science degree from University of South Florida. My own research focuses on the second trial of Joan of Arc. That was the 15th century set of proceedings that overturned Joan's conviction as a heretic and made the case for her veneration as a holy woman. So I work on what is an underutilized document. On the slide next to the photo of me is the only image we have of Joan of Arc from her lifetime, something that was scribbled in a manuscript. My own area is the late Middle Ages, but I work with colleagues here at FSU all the way from the classical era through the early modern period. Next slide. So I'd like to have us think today about what is medieval studies, and this image here in front of us is that of Thomas Aquinas, the Holy Doctor, who represents the highest clerical elite and the apex of complex philosophical thought from the Middle Ages. Right? He represents what I would say medieval studies has most traditionally been, and still has strong ties with, but also something which we want to move beyond. At the end of our several presentations this afternoon, we'll have time for discussion, and at that time I hope we can discuss our respective definitions of what the Middle Ages is, what medieval studies consist of. But most commonly, the term Middle Ages refers to the era 400 or 500 to 1500 CE, Common Era, and covering the territories that come under the authority of the Roman Church in Europe and unified by the Latin language at the official level. However, let's take time to debate the usefulness and limitations of this definition. I know in studying Joan of Arc and the life of an unlettered laywoman, I dig deep and hard to get material to document that segment of society. Let's go to our next slide. So what features define medieval studies in particular at your institution? Here at FSU, we have faculty, bright, brilliant, hardworking faculty working in medieval studies in the English department and the History of Technologies program, the Religion department, Art History, Modern Languages, and the School of Music. The largest number of medievalist faculty and graduate students are in English, where the student receives an MA or a PhD in English with a concentration in medieval studies. Consequently, as a collection development librarian, what I purchase the most of for our collection are scholarly materials related to Anglo-Saxon and English traditions, as well as history of the book scholarship. Now, in our special collections, we do house a respectable number of medieval manuscripts and incunabula, including a chained book. Coming by the databases is more challenging because the recurring costs that they often consist of. But most recently, we acquired the database Parker Library on the web, which is an archive of Anglo-Saxon manuscripts, and we also now have the Dictionary of Old English online through University of Toronto. So we're growing and working at it and looking to work closely with CRL in enhancing the research resources for our graduate students and faculty. Next slide. So what primary source do you and your patrons make use of in medieval studies? Medieval studies at FSU is largely text-focused. Text-focused in the sense of literary analysis and text-focused in the sense of the materiality of the book, the history of the book, as well as art history perspectives on manuscript illumination. Our scholars do travel to archives around the country and in Europe, although we can all understand that economics is making this more and more difficult to do, particularly for our graduate students. What our scholars will do, for example, though, to make the most of a single trip is to obtain funding to present a paper at a European conference, like the Leeds Conference, and while they are in Europe, make the most of that visit to take in libraries, museums, and repositories useful for their research. Next slide. Well, what challenges do your institution's researchers in medieval studies face? Now, this little signature here, Jehan, that's the only thing we have written by Joan of Arc from her lifetime. Although we know a lot about her, everything we know about her is through other people documenting her life. So the challenges that face not only my research but the field as a whole include recovering the writings, the experience, the contributions of the unlettered members of society, including women as well as laymen and religious and ethnic minorities. At FSU, databases with recurring costs, like the Library of Latin Texts, for example, which I have faculty requesting, we have not yet been able to obtain a recurring cost of several $1,000s per year. It's on hold for right now. We hope for donors who will want to brand their name on a database and endow its subscription for the institution. I know that CRL will offer through its Scholars Access Program limited time-constrained access to a database for a particular scholar's work with documented research outcomes. Next slide. So how may CRL best support medieval studies? Well, what we have this little images of a church from the early Middle Ages. And the unique thing about medieval studies in North America is that we are not there, okay? So actually engaging in the architecture or having close proximity to the materials, the place of origin, is our challenge, right? So we are at a distance, but yet some of the most interesting perspectives, because North America has like an outsider's type perspective, vital research comes from North American scholars. My institution draws upon CRL for its microform collections and, importantly, for its foreign language dissertation purchasing. And most recently, I located a foreign language dissertation in the CRL database of the life of Saint Chad, okay, an Anglo-Saxon saint. And we had a critical edition that was conducted as someone's doctoral dissertation, a European dissertation. When I found that and was able to provide our faculty member with it, we then uploaded all of CRL's digital content, what's immediately available, into our catalog, so our users can find it directly. So that sums it up for FSU, and I will pass the baton to Susan at Western Michigan.
Hi, I'm Sue Stoyer, and I'm a Special Collections Librarian and Medieval Historian from Western Michigan University, and also the Collection Manager for Medieval Studies here in Kalamazoo. Like Jane, my personal research discusses religious women and their place in the church, but I'm focused on a group of women, widows who took vows of chastity in northern England, and so I work with ecclesiastical and secular documentary records in general. I represent a different kind of research with different needs because these women are less prominent and more easily hidden behind male members of their families. And I'm interested in how they work with various strategies to control their activities and how knowledge of different options was transmitted between women. And so I look at everything I can find about these women and their families, starting with catalogs of artifacts such as headstones and funeral monuments, to liturgical books, bishops' registers, wills, letter collections, legal cases, pedigrees, visitation records, papal records, civic chronicles, and so on. And the manuscripts I use are not pretty or fancy or famous enough to warrant a facsimile, but are often available in microfilm collections. My presentation answers, for my institution, a lot of the questions that Jane has asked. Next slide, please. In terms of serving my library, I look at how the CRL holdings, our on-site collections, and other available resources to serve our faculty and students in their teaching and research. Our institutional profile, similar to many other places, we have one interdisciplinary undergraduate course in medieval studies and, of course, various courses in other disciplines which cover the Middle Ages, a master's program in medieval studies, and graduate programs which have students working on medieval topics in a wide variety of disciplines. And then we have departments which use these materials tangentially for teaching, such as art history, the history of the book, graphic design, and in our engineering program, digital imaging program. Because of the International Congress on Medieval Studies, we're exposed to a lot of new research approaches and the new resources that come out every year in May. Our affiliated faculties are members of a wide variety of associations and organizations which make them aware of more tools and resources for specialized work, especially in the development stage. And all of this helps us target potential acquisitions and easily overwhelms our available funding. So like many institutions, we purchase or acquire what we need to support the curriculum and research on a day-to-day basis, such as a lot of the kinds of things Jane was talking about, research and language databases such as abbreviations, the digital international medieval bibliography, the Latin tools and Latin databases from Brepolis, and so on, select monographs, the most significant journals, digital collections such as the medieval travel writing from Adams Matthews, Parker on the web, and we digitize, as you see from this slide, select materials from our own collections. We also have a manuscript collection of about 150 items, primarily Cistercian studies materials, and then samples for paleographic and historical instruction. And then we also collect the research collections of retiring or deceased medievalists who want to have their collections preserved for future scholars. But our collection management team is relatively reluctant to purchase microfilm or microform materials. And next slide, please. We work with other groups to expand what our patrons can access. We're members of several consortia which provide different types of material for the study of the Middle Ages. We use and recommend open access digital collections, such as that of the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library. Our faculty researchers can often travel to materials, but graduate students need to find material for discovery to determine what items they might want to work on. Our goal in the graduate programs is for the students working on medieval topics to go to archives prepared to make the most of their time, prepared with language, methodology, paleography, handling, and archival etiquette, but also they need to have examined specialized catalogs, older rare secondary materials, or very specific things that we can't afford or can't find. And we can't collect material in anticipation of every potential thesis or dissertation talk. I'm most interested in finding out what kinds of needs CLR collections best address for your institution, what formats are needed, digital, microfilm, or physical, who would use them among your constituents, and what you would plan for them to be used, how you would plan to use them in your own institution. And I will then pass you on to Danielle Forster from the University of Victoria.
Hello, everybody. I'm Danielle Forster. I'm the Information Services Librarian for English, French, Religious Studies, and just recently Rare Books, although I did work in that position from 2006 to 2008. I'm at UVic's McPherson Library, and I've been asked to just share a bit how medieval manuscripts have been used for teaching at the University of Victoria. Between 2006 and 2008, as I mentioned, I worked with faculty using special collections materials in their teaching. And it was during this period that I helped facilitate the use of our medieval manuscripts collections in several courses, lectures, and workshops. Next slide, please. The medieval manuscripts collections at UVic include the Brown Collection, which is a donated collection, and the Medieval Studies Collection, which was purchased specifically for teaching purposes by the Medieval Studies Department and Special Collections. The Brown Collection is very eclectic. It includes a large number of medieval manuscripts dating from as early as the 10th century up to the 16th century. Our Medieval Studies collection includes mainly single leaves and fragments and paleographic collections purchased for classroom use. The most recent acquisitions are 7 fragments that were purchased in Europe in 2006 by Dr. Eric Quackle. He was with the Department of History in Medieval Studies. And the purchased fragments were the basis of a new course developed by Dr. Quackle in 2008, as well as a series of public lectures and exhibits he held in the library and at the annual Medieval Studies workshops. Next slide, please. So how have the fragments been used? I should also have mentioned on the slide that they've also Art History has used. We have a few Islamic materials that have been used as well. But I've just been asked to focus on the fragments mainly, and so I just wanted to talk about Dr. Quackle's course that he developed. Dr. Quackle is an expert on medieval manuscripts, paleography, and codicology. And one of his areas of expertise is the study and identification of fragments that have been found in early printed books. Manuscripts were considered old-fashioned in the early years of printing, and they were often cut down and recycled for use in the bindings of early printed books. And we have some examples of those kinds of books in our collection. Centuries later, when the books are taken apart for restoration, these manuscript fragments are being discovered hidden within the bindings. The fragments can range from very small pieces with only a few lines of text to full leaves. The fragments Dr. Quackle obtained for special collections were subsequently identified and dated by him, and they include an Aristotle, 13th century, Roman law text, 1200 to 1250, a commentary on the Psalms, a Corpus Luris Civilis, and an encyclopedic text on plants, all dated between 1250 and 1300. Dr. Quackle used these fragments and others from both collections in a new medieval studies course that enabled students to choose one manuscript from a large online inventory that we worked together to create along with special collections staff. And they were required to work with that one manuscript or fragment throughout the term, using using many of the methods that Dr. Quackle himself uses in his own research to date and identify medieval fragments. The intention was to eventually build a website where the student papers could be published. Unfortunately, Dr. Quackle's research has taken him back to Leiden, so this part has not yet been completed. However, this course proved to be one of the most successful of our collections for teaching purposes. Next slide, please. Another important use of our manuscript collections has been digital projects. These two projects, Bartolomeus Anglicus and Lydgate's Fall of Princes, were collaborative projects between medieval studies students and special collections. And I understand there's someone in our audience that is interested in John Lydgate, so our Fall of Princes site especially may be of interest to this person. The Bartolomeus Anglicus project went up live on the web in 2004. It's a digital facsimile of the late 13th century manuscript, which is translated on the order of things, acquired by special collections in 1974. And at that time, it was the first medieval manuscript in British Columbia. Lydgate's Fall of Princes manuscript, circa 1480, is John Lydgate's work on the downfall of famous people. The text here is in Middle English, and it's also available as a digital facsimile. I invite you to explore both of these sites. They can be accessed from the UVic Library's website under Specialized Collections, Manuscripts, and Literature. It has been a privilege to share this brief overview of how we're using medieval manuscript collections at UVic, and now I'm going to turn things back over to Mary.
Hi, this is Mary again. From the registration survey, a number of people asked about purchasing resources, and CRL manages a number of programs which we will go to. Again, from the green bar, you want to go to collections, and then in the drop-down menu, collection building will take you to a page where on the right-hand side, if you click on the link for cooperative resource development, you'll be taken to a page that talks about the programs we have. I won't bother to go much into detail, but these programs can help you stretch local funds by having CRL purchase materials through them. The demand purchase program works very nice for individual scholars because we will buy up to $2,000 worth of materials in 3 categories. The 2 categories I think of most interest would be archival materials and the doctoral dissertations from outside the U.S. and Canada. The purchase proposal program really is involved in purchasing large sets. Many of the microform sets that we have on our topic guide came as a result of that. And the shared purchase program is more of a buying club. The final program, Scholars Access Program, is one we're still testing out to see its value to our members. And that's really to help address needs in this digital age. Through it, we've often provided a scholar or a professor limited term access to online materials that they wouldn't be able to access on their own. So that's going to cover that. Next slide. I want to lead into the question, the open discussion period, by first addressing some further questions from registration. A number of people asked about historical art resources, images of sculpture. I've got to say that for the most part, we have the large collections of manuscripts. Some of the manuscripts are illuminated. Those often are in color microform, which I was surprised there was such a thing as color microform. However, other images I think are most likely to be found in the secondary sources that we have in our collection, either through the doctoral dissertations or other maps we have. The two images that you see on this screen are both taken from dissertations. One work is on the tarring and maintenance of Norwegian medieval staff churches. That, the image you see, is a building that still exists, but which was built in medieval times. I'm amazed. The other is a picture of a sculpture that's from the Bramberg Cathedral. I would like to now go to the open discussion period. I'd like to segue to Paul Sanger, because I know we're very lucky to have him here with us live in this audience at URL, but I also know that he had his own questions, and I thought it would be great for him to open up the discussion period with his words.
Well, I'm very pleased to see that in Susan's presentation, graphically at least, was mentioned the joint acquisition program, which we have at the Newberry Library, which I think complements a lot of things in medieval studies that you do here at CRL. I mean, we work with 8 different Midwestern institutions to buy actual manuscripts so that people who have some exposure on the web and through digital images to manuscript materials can come to the Newberry, and those who participate can borrow from the Newberry actual codices, which are now, I think, are over 20 or 22 different codices. We just bought a new one in the last few days. Another point that came up to me was the point of access. I've been so impressed since I've been speaking to Mary about the quantity of medieval manuscripts, meaning manuscript books, that are here in one kind of facsimile, either a printed book or in most cases a microfilm, a microfiche, or a digital copy, but which are not easily accessible. And while we were chatting over lunch, I was suggesting an idea that had come to my mind many years ago when I was bibliographer of historical studies at Northwestern, that is to provide a unified access to all of these collections by codex number. That is to tap into this great collection of thematic collections in the way that most medievalists, I believe, or at least I do, is to approach not by theme, but by the very specific library shelf mark. And while we were playing with some of the records here, we went to Google and tried one manuscript. And it's astounding what you can find on a particular manuscript book in Google, depending on the library and questions of language and terminology, and how nice it would be if all of these resources at the center could be integrated into Google, and so that people could know that there is a manuscript. There is, for example, a microfilm of additional manuscript 19,732 at the Center for Research Libraries, because otherwise it's almost like finding a needle in a haystack. And we were speculating with a modest investment, a grant could be applied for that would allow for such an index to be compiled, which would be online, which would really make what was available here more available, and at the same time integrate the kind of resources that might exist in Victoria, for example, also integrated in, so that one would have not only access to, for example, with a British Library manuscript, their record, but also an integrated way of finding the copies of those books. And that's what we talked at lunch, and that'd be fun to do, I think.
Yeah. I'm hoping someone in the audience will step up and continue this discussion, or perhaps ask a question at another point. Okay, Charles Wright wondered precisely how a member could access something like a microfilm in the CRL collection. I sort of ran out of time. I had wanted to cover this a bit, but through our online catalog, all our bib records are also in WorldCat. But if we could go to our switchblade to our collection screen, you can search our catalog by going to the catalog search options. Search the catalog right there. If you click the search options button below the catalog search options, we are taken to the search screen. I always love doing advanced search rather than a keyword search. You can search specific fields. How about British Library as an author? And then add manuscripts in any field, and we'll see what comes up. One can also do select searches for dissertations or things that we've digitized, but bringing this up, you can see everything that we have in our collection. There's 86 items retrieved. Many of them are past the age of medieval studies, but this is how one would access stuff. The keyword search is also very important. When Paul and I were playing around, we did experiment with putting in a manuscript, and some of our huge manuscript records are analyzed, and so one was able to retrieve a record in that case. Not all our sets are totally analyzed. I hope that helps you, but I do understand how material can be trapped in a large collection unless there's some sort of index that one can access to find out which particular manuscripts are in which manuscript collection. We have another question from Heather. She's working with more classes and students who are doing work on a number of topics related to medieval Africa. Most of our resources for Africa do not go back as far. I believe Cyril has some resources on this, and if we could do another search in another advanced search in the catalog, and I would do keyword searches for both any field, Africa and then medieval. I don't think we have many, but CRL is expanding things. We've recently purchased a number of Arabic manuscripts from the British Library. And as you would know, the material goes across northern Africa. Then we have a number of dissertations dealing with the theme. Those are secondary sources. But more importantly, if you know of some sort of set that's out there, perhaps we could buy it through one of the purchase programs and have it at CRL. Many of our members do borrow the entire set of something and put it on course reserves while teaching a class. We ask that if that's what your intent, to just let us know, because we even though we have a generous 90-day initial loan period, when we know it's going to be on course reserves, we actually give it more time. Any other questions? Okay, we have another one for smaller institutions. Some large databases may be affordables, others may not. Recently, due to member input, we have been offering electronic resources at consortium prices. We have been putting forward them. Most recently, on the purchase proposal ballot, we had such databases like Times of India. James, what was? Foreign Office files for India, and there was one other that I can't, the name's escaping me at the moment, and Electronic Enlightenment. And we also have this spring about 5 other resources being offered. This information would go to the collection development officer that I have on my listserv. Often institutions which may have restrictive funds or not enough money to buy them individually, they were able to take advantage of the consortium pricing. We have another collection about specific kinds of medieval collections you hold and digital collections. Our collections really are driven by you, the members, and one of the things I hope this webinar would do would to make the audience more aware of how much power is in your hands. If you can, please contact me about more information. Our purchases really are driven by you. So another person has asked that our collections seem to be from the British Archives, and asked if we have any from Continental Archives. One of the things I showed Paul over lunch was that we have a nice little tidy collection of Tristan legends from the Bibliothèque Nationale on microfilm. I'm not sure when they were purchased, but there's about 20 of them, and we had added them to the collection. You could pull those together by doing a subject search on Tristan Legends Romance, I believe. So we're driven by you. If our collections seem to be more drawn from British Archives, well, that might be one of the reasons why England was the first country in the survey. Does not mean that we don't have other things, but we're waiting to hear from you. I'm hoping at the end you'll see my email. I'm always open to questions via email for details, because I know we can't always get into it right now. Another question is, do we have a priority on purchasing complete sets? That's kind of tricky, because so often we think we have a complete set, and then 10, 15 years later, a micro-publisher will add additional units to something. And often, since we are driven by our members, if our members aren't nominating that additional new units, we may not collect it. Most recently, in preparing the topic guide for this, I noticed we had, if we could go back to the medieval topic guide, one collection where it says that there's 9 units out there, and we've got 8. And I had wondered about that, because I'm like, well, I thought we had it all. As it turns out, I still have a query in with the vendor who's not quite certain the 9th unit was ever published. If you go to the Collections tab, it's in the church archives, and it's the Episcopal registers. We do have parts 1 through 8, but supposedly there's 9 parts to this set. I would appreciate it if anyone knows for certain if Part 9 was ever published, because the current holders for this weren't sure themselves and are digging it around, because I know they'll want to sell us one. Any other questions?
Question about digitization. What's available?
Okay. What sort of digitization initiatives? We digitize I see it as having a couple of streams flowing through our digital production department. One stream is fed by on-demand, with people requesting items from us. If they fit a certain criteria, we send them on to have it scanned, because we can get it scanned if it's not like 101 volumes of some huge set. We can get it turned around in 5 days, which is about the time it would take for us to send it out through the mail, have you receive it, and have it go through all the processes for you to give it to your interlibrary loan patron. We also do targeted or plan scanning, where we have identified materials that we wish to make accessible because we've noticed a strong interest in an area. So we will often do plan scanning. And those are the two things that feed our digital production. We'll see our purchase scans from European libraries. We already am participating with Ethos in an interesting way, where we have funded if a dissertation is from a university that has signed a contract with Ethos, and not all English universities have, we have paid for the scanning for dissertations on the Middle East recently, and I had recently raised this possibility with Bernie to doing something similar for medieval studies. We have purchased scans because a lot of places that used to sell microform are now selling scans on a CD-ROM instead. So through our demand purchase program, we are picking up archival records on scanned CD-ROMs. I hope that answers that question. Yeah. Larger digital materials would be through licensing efforts, working with the vendor to present a consortium offer to those libraries in our membership that wish to take up the reduced pricing. At this point, I'm going to turn it and yes, CRL does lend the CD-ROM or send PDF. The things we scan for on demand for patrons, we do send or provide a link to a PDF. I am now going to turn it back over to Gwen to wrap up this webinar.
Mary, and thanks everyone. That was so interesting and obviously such a popular topic. So thanks to our speakers and our presenters and all the attendees. If you go to a lot of webinars, you know that the passing of the baton is fraught with. So with 5 presenters, I think one dropped baton. We didn't do too poorly. So thank you for being so patient with us. Next slide. I wanted to next. Sorry. So if you need to follow up with our presenters, we will make sure that you get their emails. It's on
the other slide.
Yeah. You know, obviously, I'm sure a lot of you will still have questions, and unfortunately, we are out of time because we want to keep this to an hour. So please feel free to follow up with our presenters today. I will be sending you out yet another email with links to the PowerPoint. This presentation will be up on our YouTube channel and our website, hopefully by the end of this week. And we also have a follow-up survey that we really encourage you to fill out because actually over 100 of you filled out our pre-survey, and Mary showed those statistics at the beginning, and then we'll have a follow-up one just your feedback on this presentation. It's so helpful to us, and we want to make sure that you're taking full advantage of your membership here at CRL. So please take a moment to fill that out for us. I also wanted to mention that our next big event really is our annual council meeting on Thursday, April 21st. It's on a Thursday this year. Could we go to the website? And we will be discussing, it's usually a two-part meeting. The morning is a business meeting for directors, and the afternoon is going to be a collections forum. Just click on you can just go to this is the front page of our website, and if you go there in our news and events box, you can click right here for more information on that. You can register really easily, and there's more information. Even if we scroll down, we don't have to click on that, but if we scroll down a little bit, great. There's more information. It'll be more about primary sources, continuity, evidence, and primary sources in a digital age, ensuring access to primary source collections and databases. So it should be a really interesting presentation, our afternoon collections forum, so please don't miss that. Could go back to the slide really quickly, and Mary has something else to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one other thing that I did point out. I do what's called reference consultations, and it was right under the link for the collection programs that we offer. Please contact me if you have any questions regarding anything. I am the person who will, if I can't answer it, I will find the right person who can answer your question.
Great, thanks, Mary. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Look for the presentation soon, and the email from me if you want to review this presentation again or share it with colleagues. It will be available for you. We encourage you to sign up for our frequent email newsletter called CRL Connect, which is really easy to do at the link that you see there. And you can also find us on Facebook, where we're always posting about events, new things in our collection, recently scanned items. It's worth your while to just click like and find us on Facebook. Thank you again for joining us today, and have a wonderful afternoon.